Well, this is supposed to look like a blizzard. It does not. The weather in this place is the weirdest. I thought Ontario was a little, as I like to say, fractious. The weather here in Northfield, and I guess the Cleveland area, just that lake effect weather is insane. It can change by the second, it seems like. They already canceled the Meadow, so I'm sure the Meadow is going to get pounded today, but they're going to be very upset if it looks like this. So we were supposed to be getting pounded by snow right now. Obviously, either a lot fell last night, or I have no idea. It doesn't look like a lot. Well, some fell, but not a lot. I don't know. It's hard to explain. So it looks like I guess I'll be going back to Ontario today now. The reason being Oliver has baseball practice, right? And we have a few other little things. I was planning on droning tomorrow in Ontario, but Curtis couldn't drone, so they're droning right now. Actually, should be on the trash. First set should be over right now in Ontario. I was quietly, hopefully, trying to get to the awards banquet in Michigan this weekend, and one of a number of things would have to happen. Either Amy took Ollie and went to Ontario, which Amy doesn't like traveling that distance and going through the border, and she just gets anxious, right? Yeah, it causes some anxiety, so I'm happy to go whenever I can. I was going to take the girls and go to Lansing, Michigan, and go to the awards banquet. I was looking forward to it. I love going to those little banquet type things and getting to meet people in Michigan, right? I haven't really known anybody outside the Harmon family and a few of our clients in 20 years in Michigan. So it would have been nice to talk to people and get to know some people, but it doesn't look at this point at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday. Now, if the snow starts blasting this area, then who knows? Anything's up for grabs. But as of right now at 8 o'clock, and it said the Weather Network still says it's coming. Oh, it's coming. It's coming. I don't see it. So if it starts, fine. As of this point, in 3+ hours, we'll be heading back to Ontario. Now, yesterday, pretty decent day. The greedy side of me says, we should have done a little bit better, right? A little bit better. But that side of me that remembers Wednesday is like, well, don't be too whiny. Be a pretty rough one on Wednesday. So, looking back at last night, I did a video leaving the Meadows yesterday. Really, really impressed with Time Is On My Side. Now, some of the finer things are lost on me sometimes. And I say that we have the greatest clients on earth all the time. And, maybe you guys believe me or don't believe me or think that I'm just blowing smoke. A perfect example. We have, here's Time Is On My Side. Right now, for the most part, we have a fortune into Time Is On My Side. Now, we hoped that he would be a stake horse, a very competitive stake horse, and it turned out that he was just immature. We couldn't really get him to where we wanted to get him. Where's Eric going? We couldn't really get him to where we wanted to get him. So we gave him time off. We ended up castrating him, giving him time off, and bringing him back. Trained down good, but not like, hey, pump your brakes, this Jesus horse feels like a world champion good. Just, hey, this horse feels good, right? We raced him yesterday. He races great. I get a phone call from James. He said, Anthony, Time Is On My Side racing in January. You just don't think he's going to be a good horse this year? I said, quite the opposite. I'm going to let him prove he's a good horse. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, James, from January to April, it's kind of cheap racing. So if we happen to have to race Time Is On My Side, and it just looks, because we all know, you can pace in 51 all summer, make 40 grand in the grassroots, the Buckeye, the Stallion Series, just bumping around those stakes. If you can't get to that next level, and it's tough, especially for pacers, it seems like, only because of the speed, right? If you can't get to that next level, and you're just a horse, pick up the program. I always like, I guess I don't like, but it's interesting. think it's a program at Northfield. I don't see it at the Meadows as much. They list, there must be one program that prints programs. So one information-based program that has the yearling price of even the aged horses. If you look, I don't know if you guys get them. I think Northfield has them, and I'm not positive. But it'll have the yearling price there. Just a little area where it shows it. And the expensive horses that end up just being very ordinary, mediocre animals is abundant, right? It's a huge risk. But understanding that. So James said, well, you wouldn't just wait till June? I said, so we're going to double down on hopes and dreams of him being a world champion and turn down money from January to April that we know we can make. Now, as I said, James, full disclosure, I liked the way the horse trained down. I liked the way he felt. That was an impressive mile. If he goes out the next 2 weeks and does that again, we just turn him out for 3 weeks. We now backpedal away from those early closers in the Meadows. Now, what is it, 2 or 30, whatever they are, or wherever else they're offered, Poconos, the Bobby Weiss or whatever they call it, and I'm sure there's something around Philadelphia. Now we're not rummaging through the trash, so to speak. No disrespect to the horses that have won the Bobby Weiss. You know what I'm getting at. We're not rummaging. Now we have a game plan, right? But allowing us to have that game plan is important. Well, race him in the maiden, see how he feels. Every race by race. Change your plan if you have to, or continue on your course. If this horse went out and won at 57 yesterday and looked okay, you race him in the non-winners or 2, hope he got better, and then race him in the early closer at the Meadows, or ship him out to the Bobby Weiss or wherever. You try to accumulate as much as you could before June. Maybe shut him down for a month. Aim for the fall. Aim for the non-winners of whatever. Price them at Yonkers or at Mohawk. Try to claw back what you could and have some fun. Too many times what happens is, you fall into that trap of, we all dream. I dream, you dream. Sounds like a commercial. Ice cream. We all dream. But at some point, there has to be a reality, right? A reality check where you look and say, okay, is this a Kentucky horse? Is this a Grand Circuit horse? Is this a Pennsylvania Sires or Stallion Series horse? This is an Elmers or 2 horse. There's nothing saying they have to stay there, but what are they likely? And you're always reassessing that. I was impressed with Time Is On My Side yesterday. And for anybody that wasn't, that's unfortunate because he raced very, very well. So now, as I said to James, and the takeaway from this story is James was a little perplexed that nobody was flipping out that the horse was racing in January. And I told him, because our clients understand. I said, we communicate with our clients and let them understand what our game plan is moving forward. And even though I don't remember outlining step by step what our plan was with Time Is On My Side, you get it. All I got yesterday was congratulatory notes. Horse raced good. Hey, geez, that horse looked good. You really had a big kick on the end of it. Looks like we might have something here. Just that optimism we were looking for. And if I wait till April and that class goes in 54 and he finishes third, you're like, he was good, I guess. But being able to maneuver the horses around where they fit and having people stand behind you and have your back is important. And that was the takeaway from yesterday's chat with my brother. And he was a little surprised. I told him, I said, you're racing a horse tonight in the exact same boat, ready for landing. Although he wasn't $165,000 yearling, and we don't have, probably $200,000 or more into this horse. We have high hopes. And he was flat last night. So 3 check marks, right? I guess 2. Talked to James. James thought he was slipping. He said, Anthony, it's much icier here tonight. We were talking last night before I went to bed. He said it was much icier here tonight than it was at the qualifiers before. This horse trained out great. Just seemed flat tonight. And it's not time because he went faster. He said he felt he was slipping. He may be. First thing we did was scope him. A little bit of mucus found, but not unorthodox for not out of the ordinary for a horse's age, a 3-year-old. A 2 out of 5, with the weather we're having, not that shocking. Not what you would call the reason he was flat. Next, I said, and I'm talking to Dominic via text simultaneously, probably should take his blood, make sure there's nothing there. And there may not be. And I'm going to talk about him a little more in depth in a second. May not be. But we need to check. Wasn't nothing in the scope. No blood, no mucus for the most part. Great. No blood, a little bit of mucus. No big deal. Draw his blood. See what his GGT is. We've had some issues with that. A lot of people have. AST. Maybe his differentials flip. Maybe he's getting a little sick. There's a lot of things that could be going on, but we need to be able to rule that out. Once we rule that out, then we can look to the shoeing and say, okay, he's got flip-flops on an icy track. He wears elbow boots. He's got a little weight on. If you slow down that finish where the horse goes by, you can see him in fourth, how close he comes to his elbows. How much is he getting into those elbows? Is that causing a problem? These are things we can answer, but step by step. First scope, then blood, then we move on to mechanics. I said to take away, yeah, I'm disappointed. I wanted him to win. Great trip. James drove them both fantastic last night. I wanted him to win, but when I look at him, quiet at the gate, sat in the hole perfect, follow cover great, just didn't have any pop at the end of it. The first 3 are very, very important. Quiet at the gate, huge. Sat in the hole perfectly. Another huge thing. Follow cover. Looked to attack, just didn't have any gas in the tank on the end of it. Why? All the major things you're worried about. If he had won the race, but he was crazy at the gate and he had to hold him together and move him back to the front, takes a shine off what he did. If he'd have out won last night, you would say an absolute A+. The horse was amazing. He was just a little flat. So we'll get him looked at. We know about the scope. Right? It was clean. It wasn't the airway issue. It wasn't sickness that we could see. The blood work will back that up or not. And then we can move on to mechanics. I said I wouldn't worry about it. By all accounts, yeah, I'm a little disappointed, but when I step back and look on the horse's entire body of work last night, it was tremendous. Just a little slower than we wanted. But the manners, most important, the manners were there. Now, a ton of emails about Collector last night and Chris Christoforou. I have been where Chris is, not quite, because he's a little bit older than me, and I do feel bad for him. Right? Doesn't got a ton of drives right now. Drives for Harry, and somebody said he's a terrible fit for Collector. Well, you're wrong. He's a great fit for Collector. He just didn't drive the horse great. He drove him great last week. He drove him lackluster his first start. His second start, he was overly cautious with him. Then he was overly aggressive with him, which I was okay with, because I'm always going to lean more overly aggressive. And then last night was just a bad drive. And I'm sure he'd tell you that. I've given plenty of bad drives. Chris is old school. And I need everybody to understand and listen to what I'm about to tell you. Chris Christopherou's been around and is managing young horses forever. Drove for every big trainer in Canada. And yes, I'm well aware that was in history, in the past. Somebody says he's a terrible fit. He's a fantastic fit. Collector's been a runaway and a loon his whole life, and putting a quiet set of hands on him like Chris is a good thing, but it wasn't last night. And I'm left. I know that Harry likes Chris, and for the exact same reasons I just said, because that's Harry, right? Harry's quiet. But quiet's not going to work. So I can either take the horse over to the Meadows, which is possible. We have nothing in the Nalmers 2 right now, and he'd mop the guts out of them. They went 2 minutes and 4/5 yesterday. He'd win. But I don't know enough about the horse. They say, oh, he's hot. Well, good. Lots of horses are. You don't get to train our horses on race night. And that is my overall message to all our drivers. James and I butt heads all the time. Before James McDonald was James McDonald, we used to get in screaming matches over this, because the same email I got about Chris Christoforou last night, I used to get about James. Hey, I know he's your brother, but can we use somebody else? Right? Everybody wants to, yeah, right? Nobody really cares how the muffins were made as long as they taste good. And it's just not going to happen. And it's not to say that I'm not going to take, I talked to Harry, and ultimately Harry knows Anthony's stance. I want our horses ready to race on race night. You can train them in the middle of the week in the mornings. You can school them. You can even qualify them. But when they go behind the gate, and there is dollar signs on the board and purse amount at the top. I want them ready to go. And I don't need them managed. If Collector gets out in the non-winners of 2, struggles in the non-winners of 3, we'll just move him. He can do in the non-winners of 7 claimer here. No problem. He can do in the condition claimer at the Meadows. We can send him to Dayton. He can go to Yonkers. We have options, a ton of options, none of which are erasing the horse from 10th at the 3/4 pole. And I know Chris is going to say, here's the problem. You see James go out of there 2-1. At that point, he should have gone forward, but I don't know the horse. Was he worried he'd make a break? Maybe. I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not going to pile on the guy. Guy's got like 7,000 wins and over 100 million made in purses. He hasn't forgot how to drive a horse. There's a lot of people out there that just don't like Chris Christopher's driving. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. There's a lot of people out there that don't like Anthony McDonald's driving, and I made a quarter of what he did as a driver. It's food for thought. I guess a third. Anyway, the moral of the story is I'm sure Chris Christopher went to bed knowing he drove the horse bad and woke up knowing he drove the horse bad. Sucks because he doesn't have a ton of drives right now. That doesn't make him a bad driver. It makes him a driver that made a mistake. So my discussion will likely be to Harry. There has to be repercussions. We'll likely list James on the horse next week, but that doesn't mean that Chris Christopher doesn't drive for us. For those of you out there that don't like him, I get it. When I drove against him, I didn't like him that much. He's not a bad guy, and he is a good fit for a hot horse. Very good fit. And he takes care of your horse. I bit my lip 3 weeks ago, when he kind of run Locatelli through the middle. I hate that stuff too, but then he just come out and jog the next week, right? They can't be good every week. If you account for 30 starts in the year, account for 18 of them being quality. And in those 18 starts, you have to, because the other ones you're going to draw the outside. You're going to get sick. You're going to make a break. You're going to have broken equipment. Something is going to happen. Try to turn 18 into 22. Try to make sure that those 18 to 22, you're on your best foot, right? And that's how I see things. Whether you call it numbers or what, that's how I see things. So you will likely see James down to drive Collector next week. I would take him to the Meadows, but I looked at the weather last night, which I don't usually do a week ahead. I shouldn't in this place, but it is going to be a swamp next week, and I don't even know if they're going to be able to get raced at Northfield and the Meadows. So that's the thing with Collector. Before you start firing off emails angry because of your personal dislike for the way a driver drives, keep in mind, for me to be okay with Chris Christopher driving, knowing that he is a very conservative person, there has to be a reason for that, because I'm not a big conservative person on the track. And the same with James. James messaged me and goes, hey, I want to stay special, 10 hole. I said, James, I'm not going to tell the leading driver in Canada how to drive. If you take her back, I'm going to punch you in the mouth. No, I said, just put her in play. If she feels good, race her. If she doesn't, pull a James. That's what you need to do. And he certainly drove Stay Special. Perfect. Earplugs in, winning the race. I just love to see. She doesn't have a ton of money in a fast mark, but classy in the sense that she wants to work. The groundwork that Stacy Chota put into that mare was amazing. And when we bought the mare, we knew her knees were very sore. We did our best to manage them, and we ended up having to stop with her. But we gave her the time, brought her back, and for a horse to come back from that, sometimes when they come back from those sore knees, they're like, maybe I don't want to put out 100% because it ends up with me hurting my knees. That may sound silly, but a lot of horses do. When they're coming off injuries, they're very protective of themselves. And she certainly threw caution to the wind and looked great out of the 10 hole. Great job by James and Dominic. And all the caretakers to take care of all the horses. So before we pile on Chris Christopher, just take a minute, trying to walk a step in his shoes. I get that you guys are much like-minded like me and don't really appreciate a good old-fashioned conservative drive. But I think he just got caught in a bad spot last night. Got away probably 7th, a little further back than he wanted to be with the other favorite on the front end. Then Tyler pulled the other horse that looked like an okay horse on paper and literally sat in park for 3 seconds and then plummeted through the field. So completely screwed the race and put him in a terrible spot. At that point, I think a guy like Chris just says, I'd like to grab a 5th. No 5ths. We don't aim for 5th. We can finish 5th, but it was trying to win. That's what it was. And it's hard to. It's hard to get that through to everybody's head sometimes. If collector gets out of that class, we'll get you another collector, right? Forward march. So you'll probably see James down to drive him. I will likely race him in Ontario once more. And if James picks over him, then Chris may get the drive back. But message needs to be sent, and not a rude one. Just, hey, we don't need a savior. We just need you to race the horses. Anyway, I'm not angry. I've been on the other side of that a million times where I've driven bad or they just raced bad. It's life. It happens. It's racing. But for those of you out there maybe that have some personal ill will, maybe you are gamblers that don't like Chris, and I can imagine that's probably the case, and I understand why. Just remember that he does have 7,000 wins. He does have over $120 million made in purse money. And yes, it's been well over a decade, almost two probably, maybe more than two, since he was that Chris. The guy still is a very useful, quiet set of hands for our horses, and sometimes it comes in handy. So with that, I'll let you go. No hard feelings. Listen, I get that tempers flare. God knows mine do. But maybe try to look at it from all sides before we flip it. And in last night's case, you're 100% correct. It's just a bad drive. It happens, and hopefully we can get collector on the straight and narrow. If it turns out that maybe he's just not having any luck in Ontario, if he makes a break or is no good, if James drives him next week, then fine. We have tons of paths for collector. Just relax. So take care. Have a wonderful day. It is starting to snow here now, but not as hard as they said it would. We'll see how the rest of the morning plays out. We're going to train 3. I missed. I made a mistake. 3 had trained yesterday. 17 are training here today. 10 are training in Ontario. Hallie in the Clouds is qualifying in an hour and 25 minutes. Good luck to all my partners with her. And I think because of the cancellation at the Meadows, we only have Easy in the Turns tonight. So good luck to all my partners with her. Take care. I'll talk to you soon. Have a wonderful start to your weekend wherever you are.